and what does it mean for masculinity, and it would be lovely to sit and talk about that. Well, one of the ideas that is also teased in the book using the story of Ayn John is that the boy escapes or leaves with Ayn John, and to share the idea that sometimes a man has to grow up. And when a man grows up, perhaps it means that he might have to go on his own, and if he's growing up, he might have left his father's house, and the idea about where are our fathers, the companies have taken our fathers, the illness, the disease has taken our fathers, the mines have taken our fathers, ignorance has taken our fathers, the prisons have taken our fathers. So young boys grow up without role models, and we see it in our society but how does a young man grow? How does a young man then find masculinity and define it for himself? Because masculinity is something that is bestowed. It is other men that tell you that you're a man, and what is a man, and if you don't have good examples, who do you look up to? And popular culture and the media have different ideas of what a man is, and so Robert Bly teases out this idea of what is a man, and I think we still have questions about that. The jury is out. There are very few people who'd be able to explain to you what is a good man and what is a man in this day and age. So partly why we struggle is, I suppose, where do you look to become a so-called good man? And so Rob Bly then goes into the story, exploring the idea of grief and wounding, that there comes a point where men have to face their wounding, that our mothers wound us, that our fathers wound us. And so if you struggle to understand what your parents have done to you and how you then operate in the world, then you struggle to be the man that you need to be, which I have. I have a different view. Well, I don't know. I sit with people speaking about men, and I think a lot of us get obsessed with what our mother could have done and our father could have done, and in that sense we struggle to live our lives. I think sometimes our parents did what they could, and sometimes we have to love them for who they are, not who we wish they were. I mean, if your father ran away, if your father was a criminal, if your mom was somebody who neglected you, some of us psychologically, yes, makes sense why we get stuck in the past, but the ability to be able to see those things and to build a different life is an important skill and an ability to learn. So Robert Bly then teases that out, the idea that there are these wounds that we must face, and again, there's the idea about how when a young boy grows up, there are mentors, there are people outside the home who have to raise you, that you have your mom and your father, but there are people you meet along the way as the boy meets Ayn John, other mentors, and we find that it's very difficult to find mentors. It's very difficult, in South Africa at least, to find people who want to teach you about business, teach you about life, to augment and add the things that your family could have given to you. And so how is it then that somebody becomes a man? And some of us then are raised by gangs, raised by prisons, raised by churches, raised by strangers, raised by schools, and so where are our mentors? And so it would be very interesting to talk about then, how does somebody become who they need to be without mentors? And if mentors are not valuing themselves, if older men disrespect younger men, if older men don't take the time to help younger men, if a father next door does not sit and help the boy who's just heading home, or the kid who's struggling in the street. And so if we don't have mentors, how do we then raise good men? So I mean, these are some of the questions that came up for me. And the other thing is, the other idea Robert Bly then explores in the book is how men sometimes get confused with women, thinking that women will save them, thinking that if I just find the right woman, then I'll be the man that I need to be. And I suppose in his view it's a fallacy, and we see that a lot where people want to be rescued, not willing to do the internal work, that we as men perhaps make women important, sometimes at the expense of who we are, of developing ourselves, and so to move away from the idea that women will save men, that a person has to do the work. I mean, I see it in health-seeking behavior. I mean, a man would ask his partner to go have a test, and depending on her health, how her results are, then he would know what his status is. And so I think those kind of things where men rely on women to define what a man is, to help them with their health, to be raised by that. How do we become proper men if we think women will rescue us? Then that something must be done. So that's one of the ideas that Robert Bly teases out in Iron John. And the other idea which is a bit controversial in Iron John is the idea that the inner warrior needs to rise up. Now, in a context of South Africa, you have to ask the question where women abuse, where men abuse women, verbally, physically, financially. Do we want a warrior waking up, or is it a different kind of warrior? Is it a man who's willing then to fight for his family, a man who's not, say, passive? If his wife wants to have a conversation, would he be willing to sit and talk with her and be able to engage her and not shy away? That he needs to rise to the occasion, to not be timid and shy and not want to engage because he struggles with himself, he struggles with what is being a man. He wants to be so sweet that he can't love his partner properly. He can't show up when she needs him because he's either being confused, he's either not being raised, that he has not come to accept that he's a man. He doesn't trust manhood. Or masculinity. He's got a strange relationship with masculinity. How does then a man become a man if he's not willing to fight the important fights, the good fights, and not the violent beating of women and children? So that idea also comes out in the book, and the idea that we cannot be full men if we are not willing to take the journey of also facing the things that have hurt us, things that make it difficult for us to be men, things that make us cry. That part of being a warrior has to do with dealing with our wounds. So if you're a man and you are not willing to look at your emotions, that the things that upset you, the things that drive you, the things that move you, the things that shake you, the things that cause you to dream, that if you're not willing to entertain those things, to be with peers and to talk to other men and to face yourself when you are doing well and when you're not doing so well. And so that idea also comes out in the book. So when I went through Iron John, I had more questions than answers. But I thought to share these with you, that if you've got some ideas to share, some reflections, what stood out for you. If you've read the book, I'd really like to engage with you. But I quite found the book very interesting to read, a lot of thought for me. And so my question is, how do we then become men, proper men, who are functional in society, and what is a good man, and what is the proper portrait, the picture? Could somebody explain that to us? It would be very interesting to engage with you regarding this book. So Iron John, very thoughtful read. I'm interested in what you think about it.